for coming tonight. This is the Lamasco Microgallery community reception, and we're very lucky to have Jason Hoelscher, who's a fantastic artist, educator. I was lucky enough to study underneath Jason and his expertise in Italy last year. So he's a fantastic art theorist, fantastic professor, and I'm super grateful that he's giving us his time tonight. So nice warm welcome to Jason.
Thank you.
And I'm going to turn over to Jason to introduce his artwork and who he is.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Tori, for the invite in the first place, and thanks to all of you for showing up tonight. I know there's, I appreciate everybody coming out to meet up and talk and look at the work. I think this might be on the statement that Tori printed out, but I'm a painter by trade, by training. I've been exhibiting for about 25 years now, so it's been a long time. Excuse me. One of the things that was cool about this project is my work tends to be fairly large, like 6 foot tall paintings and so forth. So when I got the invitation to do a tiny micro gallery, that posed all sorts of problems. You could fit 10 of those in one of my usual paintings, so I had to figure out what to do. And I tried, first of all, to make little mini versions, and they just looked like refrigerator magnets. They weren't they didn't really do anything that I wanted them to do. So then I started thinking, well, what should I do instead? And I know one of the previous exhibitions involved a tableau, sort of a stage scene with puppets, Nina Oberlin's work. So I thought, well, maybe I'll make a backdrop like a stage. My daughter is in theater. She's an actress. So I thought, well, I'll make a backdrop first and see what that suggests. And then I thought, well, maybe instead of making tiny versions of the paintings, I'll use the same sort of imagery. I'll talk about why I use the imagery I use in just a second. I thought, well, instead of making a bunch of small images that don't really look, they don't do anything, they weren't very impressive, I thought if I turned them into a sculpture and made the cube component, and once I did that, that lent itself to a modularity. Ideally, the work is every few days or every couple of weeks has been turned or flipped over, with the goal being that anytime anybody walks by, there's something different to look at each time because of different angle, different images, and so forth. One of the things that I thought, think is really cool about this project, not only my being able to participate, but just in general. When I was in art school, one of the things I wanted to do as a painter was to make work that, fulfilled all the official important fine art stuff, but also would be something that somebody like my dad, who was a truck driver, auto mechanic, contractor, house builder, no training in art, then didn't know anything about art, but something that he would like to look at too. There's too much of the art world gets stuck behind these walls that you have to be super specialist to understand or to like or to appreciate. And I like a lot of that work too, but I think art loses out when it's not something, when you need a special degree to enjoy it. It's a lost opportunity for everybody involved. So one of the things that my work has been about for the last 25 years that I've been exhibiting is combining sort of the aesthetics of high modernist work, abstract painting and so forth, but combining it with the types of design, imagery, logo design, and so forth that we see all over our culture, on billboards, on t-shirts, on patches on the backs of people's jeans, and so forth. So trying to sort of nestle in the work that a big deal fancy specialist would get into, but also something that just somebody like my dad, or just the so-called regular person off the street who's not trained in this stuff, but might find something that's like, oh, I kind of like that pattern, or that's a cool image, that whatever, just resonates at some level that's not snobby. So the idea of putting the work into a project like this, literally on a sidewalk, not in a fancy art gallery, not in a fancy art gallery neighborhood, but in a regular residential area. To me, I just thought it was fantastic. So very into the project, and I'm excited to, as I said, excited to have been part of it.
Well, thanks for sharing. So does anybody have any questions for Jason?
What is what are the materials that you used?
Oh yeah, thank you. The materials, again, I tried figuring out how to make paintings of my paintings that small, and they didn't work. So I ended up going with transferring the images to, I forget the name of the print. It's a type of print on vinyl. It's an Otis print, printed out on vinyl and then attached to there's a special name. I can't remember the name of it. A special type of aluminum. Basically, what it ends up being is the same type of material that you see on road signs. So we could, those things are very permanent. You could put that in your backyard. It would fade eventually, but you could put it outside for years and it would still look good. The only issue, and I didn't have time, this got messed up right before I had to send it. The aluminum component, the vinyl printed onto the aluminum component, is very sturdy. As I learned, unfortunately, the connectors that I use to form the cube are not. I mentioned a minute ago, some of you weren't here for that, but I'm in Savannah, Georgia. We had our first 90-degree day back in April. So it's scorchingly hot down here. And I left the cube in the car on the way to go and send it, and the connectors got kind of worked. So hopefully that didn't bother anybody else, but I'm a perfectionist. So I looked at it, no. But hopefully nestled away in the gallery itself, the micro gallery. Hopefully it looks all right. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to have to figure out what to do with that vinyl printing technique at a larger scale. I want to see what I can do with that. It's always about the experimentation and see what doors you open with one project into another.
So if you are in Savannah, have you suffered from some flooding?
Yeah, I asked that
yeah.
earlier.
Did you?
Yeah. Not so much in my part of my neighborhood, but there were areas even just a few blocks over that had, as I mentioned a minute ago, we had, I think, 15 inches of rain in a day and a half, about a 30-hour period.
I asked that.
So
question.
yeah, we had, not in my house, fortunately, but yeah, we had flooding all over. There's still roads closed, and that was almost a week ago.
You're welcome to ask a question.
How do you originally make the patterns?
I'm sorry, what?
One more time.
How do you originally make the patterns?
The pattern.
Oh, that's a good question. Sometimes they just click right away. I should have brought some of these over. They're in my studio space. To be honest, one of the things that's interesting, I think, with the cube, which is 4-inch by 4-inch panel, or 4 or 5-inch panels, I start usually with Post-it notes, like my big 6-foot tall paintings. I'll start with Post-its and keep sketching until I get a geometric relationship that clicks. Sometimes it takes a couple of sketches and it works just fine. And then others, it might take 20 or 30 different versions to get it just right. I have some Post-its that I've been carrying around literally for 10 years because I like what's happening, but it doesn't quite work yet. And I'm like, one of these days, I'm going to figure out what this needs to resolve itself and to make it work. But yeah, these, so they start with the Post-its, then they either go to sketches on the canvas, or sometimes they work on panel. Since these went through Photoshop, actually I skipped a step. Post-its to larger paper, then I scan that into a computer and play around with color options. And then it goes to the canvas or the panel, or in this case, to the aluminum. That's a good question.
So Jason, I have a question for you. And it's
Sure.
a reflection of one of the stories that you shared in Spinokia. So we have a lot of young people here, from 4 years old all the way up. Some people still in school, some people getting a master's in art and trying to figure out their art world. One of the
Uh-huh.
stories I love that you shared was how you used to work at a gas station and read art theory when nobody was looking. Can you share more? Would you be willing to share that story? I love that
Oh, of
one.
course. I forgot that I told you that story. Um,
I
yes,
have good memory.
you do have a good memory. Yeah, uh, I worked at a gas station all through, well, through high school and through my college, my bachelor's degree studies. And I worked the graveyard shift while I was in college. I'd go to school during the day and then work overnight, usually from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And of course, after about 1 o'clock or once the bars close, there's 3 or 4 hours stretch where there's not really anybody coming in. um, there's not a whole lot of a story here necessarily, but I consider myself probably one of the few people, and as Tori mentioned, I have my PhD in art theory and aesthetics philosophy. I'm probably one of the few people in the country, if not the only person in the country, um, whose early interest in theory and thousands of pages of early art reading on theory were conducted sitting at an Amico station like 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, fond memories. It was a good job for that kind of a thing. I'm a people person too, so it's the few people who did come in always had fun stories to talk about and so forth. But yeah, my experience reading theory comes from that, and actually a breakthrough in my paintings. Um, I was in school. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do to have a distinct style and all that stuff. And a big moment was I was there and I was reading semiotics, some sort of text on semiotics, and as one does at a gas station at 2:30 in the morning. And I was reading all this stuff about the sign, the sign, signifier, all this sort of stuff. And I remember looking up at the Amico sign, which was literally a sign, and thinking, well, there's a whole semiotics of how a gas station sign operates. And if you look online, when I do artist talks at schools, I have a whole PowerPoint of this. But if you look online, two logos in particular, excuse me, are really fascinating to see how they've evolved. Look at remind yourself when you get home or on your phone or whatever, do a Google image search for the Standard Oil / Amico logo, and also the NBC peacock. The peacock in the 1950s was a full spectrum. Now it's whatever, it's 5 colors. 50 years ago, it was a full spectrum. And part of the semiotics of those sorts of logos match the speed of the culture that we're part of. If you look at the Amico logo from the 1920s, the 1950s, through the 1950s, there's a lot of detail. They draw out, the Amico logo, if you don't remember. I forget, do you all have Amico in Indiana?
Yeah.
BP, yeah. So if you remember the logo, it's an oval and it's got a torch in the middle with the flame coming up. If you look at the versions from the 1940s and 50s, they really draw every detail in there. And it gets simpler and streamlined as the decades pass. And part of that is just speed. Now a logo has to be legible when you're zooming past at 70 miles an hour on the way to work. So anyway, all this stuff sort of zipped around in my head at that sort of a crucial moment of my education, which happened to be at a gas station overnight. Of all these things sort of folded together, and the types of imagery that I make my paintings from, or that I make as my paintings, the very crisp edges, the ways the forms are highly legible, but ideally have different degrees of complexity in the ways they relate. All of that pretty much unfolds from that one moment of realization. Because as a minute ago, when I mentioned utilizing combining logos, graphic design, and so forth with the aesthetics of fine art, late modernism, and so forth, I remember thinking, well, the types of semiotics that go into that Amico logo, let's see what happens when I adapt the semiotics of fine art, high modernism, and apply those to that logo and see what happens. And that basically turns into the origin story of my style of painting that I've been exploring now for 25 years. So yeah, in a Marvel movie, that would be the origin story of how they came around. All sort of goes back to that moment at Amico.
That's clear.
Good question.
That's always stuck with me.
Yeah,
Anybody
I
else?
forgot. Yeah, that was an important moment. I should go next time. I was in Denver, Colorado when I went to undergrad, so I should go by and see if that place is still there.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So does anybody else have any questions?
What's on the back?
I don't know if you can hear you.
Oh, what's on the back?
Oh, no.
Good question. You mean the back of the backdrop or of the cube?
The back of the cube.
The back of the cube. Well, the cube has images on all what is that? I guess all 6 sides. So it can be flipped over. It can be spun around. So yeah, there's a different graphic on every facet.
Sorry.
Well,
My poor little son is
I'm just moving over here.
but
Are they going to check it out?
Yeah, he's okay. He's just the pizza got to him. You get my drift?
Oh, okay, gotcha.
We sent Dad onto it. We'll edit this part out.
I'm missing pizza.
Does he look like Vince Gill?
You have to ask him. He does.
Anybody ever tell you look like Vince Gill?
Vince Gill?
Yeah.
No. But I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, well, you should. You should.
Thank you. Yeah,
Especially
I used
'cause
to.
he wears glasses like yours too.
Huh. I'll have to look into
Look it
that.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was younger, I used to look kind of like the punk rocker Henry Rollins, and then I got older and it was Gomer Pyle. Now I'm kind of in a Flintstone phase.
No,
But
I'll
yeah,
go with
Vince Gill, I'll go with that. That sounds better than Fred Flintstone.
Oh.
I'm gonna make a note. I haven't seen him for a while, so I'll check it out.
So the cool thing about the microgallery, so I got a question. If you came and put this in, or if I put this in, and so what's really cool about the microgallery is one of the things we want to do is make the transportation easy, and to show Evansville that there are just a plethora of artists out there to get more exposure to artists who may not be allowed to exhibit in Evansville for a variety of reasons, mission statements being one of them. And so to get a fantastic artist like Jason in this space, we're very lucky for that, but also to show to Evansville. So what's cool is they're able just to ship their art here. And if they want to donate it, and this is where Shay Miller comes in.
Hey.
Hello.
We do community curator programs where Shay just curated an exhibition at the Arts Council with these artifacts. So we have Jason's shelf ready, and then we'll place the cube there tomorrow with Matthew's work too. So it's so we want to make it easily accessible. We want to make it easy for artists to show their work. We want to show Evansville what the contemporary art's doing in the now. And we also want to show different diverse artists. We're still celebrating our local artists too. So it's a way to create a bigger network. And hopefully in the future, what we can see is some type of mentorship, or at least relationship between the artist and the microgallery. But also we have an opportunity, because Jason's kind enough to donate his cube to the Lamasco Microgallery collection so that we can train the future generation of curators and people who are interested. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. I saw, let's see, Tori, you posted something on Facebook or Instagram about all this. So it was really cool. I'm excited, as with the gallery itself. I'm excited to be part of the collection. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's one of the depressing things after an exhibition.
This is the first.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah,
have you ever
super
been
cool.
to Evansville?
Sorry?
Jason, have you ever been to Evansville?
I don't know if I've been to Evansville. I've been to Indianapolis. I've been through the state a number of times. The only place I've been to that I stayed, I was in Indianapolis maybe a decade ago for a conference. I was there for a few years, about a week. Where else was it? There was another conference I was supposed to go to at Purdue. I believe,
Oh,
but
okay.
it was canceled it got messed up by the pandemic. So I grew up in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I grew up in St.
Realize
Louis.
that.
So I'm. What'd you say?
I didn't realize you grew up in St. Louis.
Oh yeah, I lived in St. Louis till I was 19 or 20. I guess 19, and then lived in Central Missouri until I was 22 or 23. So I'm a Midwesterner, born and bred.
Oh.
Just lived a lot of other places since then.
Well, we're very fortunate to have your work here with us.
Oh, yeah,
We
thank you.
appreciate you
Yeah.
sending it to us. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is great.
like I said, it was an honor to be part of it. It's really cool too to be part of the collection, because one of the depressing things after an exhibition, sometimes it's not depressing, but it's nice, you know, the show's finished and the work just comes home, and it's in my studio, and it's nice that it's actually going to still be out and about in the world instead of
Yeah.
just you know, whatever, just hanging out on some shelf somewhere in my studio, not being seen. So that's really cool. Very
That's great.
exciting.
It looks really neat in the micro gallery here.
Oh yeah, the photos I've seen have been great. I've got a whole collection I've been making screenshots of the pictures that Tori's been posting. So yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
Well, you made it into the promo. We made a promo video for the neighborhood, and it's also in that promo video. So yeah.
Oh wow, okay, I'll have to see that at some point. Maybe if it's
Yeah, this-
online or something, send me a link.
We haven't released it yet, but when it is, we'll make sure you get a link. Yeah.
Okay,
This is
cool.
an
That
up
sounds
and
good.
growing community. This is an up and growing community filled with people that are energetic and like history and art and community interaction. It's pretty cool what they're starting here, and hopefully it continues to grow.
You are just in the
Yeah.
right place. The right
Yeah, it
house,
seems
the right time.
It happens.
Yeah.
yeah, that
We're
was
lucky
the
to have
vibe that I
them
got.
around here.
Yeah, that was the feeling I got from the even just from the photos, the range of people, all kinds of different ages, just the number of folks, the variety of folks. Looks like a great place to be.
It is.
We have fun.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
You have any
Yeah,
other questions, Jason? How are you? No worries.
Thanks for coming out.
Awesome. Well, Jason, I really appreciate your time and thank you for everything. And